Eternal Spirit, may the concepts that we hold today in this meeting be those of wisdom, of service, and of right action. In every thought, word, and act, may we show complete accord with universal law.
Mm, Beautiful.
Yay! Welcome. It's an honor to connect with you today, Diana. I'm really excited to get to know you because I don't know you very well, but we do have a bit in common. And I really appreciate how creative you are and the fact that you work with energy and focus on helping people heal. I feel like you are somebody that truly aspires and does the work to walk, their talk. And so I'm excited to learn more about you as well as to introduce you to more people, because part of the reason that I created this program is to inspire others, to provide people with a different education to help reprogram them so that they can achieve health in their life and peace in their life. And that is something I believe that can really add to the conversation as well as to empower people. So I'm curious, can you, or what are you comfortable sharing with me and the audience today about yourself and your background?
Thank you so much for that welcome, Sorinne. I'm so happy to be here. Wow. I follow my intuition and it has led me into a life that is beyond my wildest imagination. And so I feel that what's on my heart now is sharing parts of my story because I'm walking in it right now. Writing a book. My book led me to this beautiful place. There's so many things I could say about how I got here, but it's really been a lifelong journey, and all of the experiences and all of the pain and all of the suffering and everything that I've endured throughout my whole life finally makes sense. And I'm seeing all the gifts that I was given in my traumas, in my pain, in my past. And now I'm actually learning how to embrace my gifts and share them. I've been hiding for a long time because I've been healing for a long time. And it was the land that was calling me home. I have visions and I see things. And this land was calling to me starting back in 2016. But this area that I'm in now, I've been moving around a lot my adult life. I never really felt home. And then my word of 2022 was home. And so this whole year, I felt like I was being led home. And that's exactly what has happened. And it happened in such a magical way. I can't even believe that all of my dreams are coming true and that this land has appeared where I can be my full self and invite people to come and have retreats and create powerful magic with all of these wonderful people that I've been connecting with all around the world. But I never would have imagined that it could have happened because realistically, it doesn't make sense how I got here, to most people. And so I think that's part of the story is that if we really follow our inner nudges and we follow our intuition and we listen, we're thrown into a life beyond our wildest imagination. And so where I am now is deep in the forest. This land was calling to me in dreams. And I've been writing my book basically my whole life, but didn't realize it. I have all of these notebooks that I call the notebooks of my life. And at any given time, my boyfriend makes fun of me because I always have a stack of notebooks or books or, drawing pads and markers and packs of pens. And they're always just next to me. And my voice notes on my phone are full of songs that just come to me and I have to record them into that. And so I've been capturing all of this creative energy, but not really giving it an outlet. And it's come out in little spurts here and there. But due to my healing, I wasn't really feeling like confident or able to share. It just felt like too much. And I've been told I was too much. most of my life. So I'm like, oh, I can't share that yet. Can't share that yet. But I would know in my heart that people really need to hear this. And so I'm starting to do that. But it was this place that was calling to me, because I feel that without a sense of home, without the safety of feeling that you really are where you're meant to be, both inner and outward, it's difficult to create, at least for me. I hadn't had that stability. I was just moving around and moving around for so many years and not really knowing where home was. And it was the dreams that came to me. And I saw myself writing my book in this beautiful place, tall grass and mountains on each side. And the sun was shining, and someone came and brought me lunch in this vision that I had while I was writing in my notebook. And the feeling of someone, because I'm usually the one cooking all of the time, and you know, that's my thing, one of my things. And to have someone bring that to me, and it felt like this love offering, like here. And that feeling just stuck with me of, oh wow, there's this beautiful place where I could just go and I could write, and someone would even bring me lunch. And it was just this amazing feeling, and it stuck with me. And then I kept having dreams and pulls towards this land where I didn't know where it was. But long story short, I ended up here and in the land of my visions. and it's happening right now. And I never could have believed it if anyone had told me this, in all these years where I just held that in my heart. And it was about a year of having these visions before I actually got down here. And so I could tell you more about any of that. I feel like I could just talk so much about my journey this year, because it's been wild ride in my internal and my external world.
I love it. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, okay, I understand why she's here, because I could say a lot of the same things about my journey. And I really appreciate you sharing that about your journey, because I know there are other people that are going through that, or hesitating, or have already gone through it. And so it's nice to know that you're not alone. It's nice for them to know they're not alone. This intuition is huge, and we all have it within us. And I believe it's something that's supposed to be developed. It comes with wisdom. It's not, it's a, for me, I feel things. We talked about this privately. I don't see things when I have visions. I feel things. And with correct reason, I'm able to interpret, what does this vision mean? Because visions are often symbolic. Okay. And so you understood, you interpreted your visions, and it led you to the right place. So that's really, really inspiring, because a lot of times we don't trust ourselves. And the way that you develop intuition is by trying it out, trying out, like, like your interpretation of your vision. And if it feels right, then it's right. And it gives you more confidence as well.
Absolutely.
I really love that you mentioned how I think you said you were in hiding because you were healing. And that's so important, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand that, it takes time and space to heal. And I'm personally an introvert. A lot of people probably don't think that about me, but I love to be alone because it's to reflect. But I also realize I have a certain duty in this lifetime. And so I put myself out there, not because I necessarily want to or wanted to. I've learned to. I've kind of surrendered into, okay, this is my path. This is why I'm here. So I'm going to get out of my comfort zone. And it's been really rewarding. Also, I sit here, I've got color markers I used earlier before our meeting. I journal. I started a new one recently. Like every day I write a little bit about love, and one of my goals is to master love. So I just think it's really cool that you do similar things, and I'm sharing that with others because one of the things I really appreciate about you is just how free you are to create, if that makes sense. And like I have, like you, well, not same background, but I have a background in healthcare. And one of the things I notice is a correlation between having a creative outlet and having health. And especially people that have issues related to their glandular system, it's really important to have a healthy creative outlet. And so, I think that's huge. I'm curious, if that's something when you work with people, if that's something that you share with them, or if you were aware. I think you are nodding your head. I think you're aware that there's a connection between health and having healthy creative outlets.
Oh, absolutely. Because I spent so much of my life not healthy and not um, not using my creativity and not using my outlets properly. You know, I've always been a writer and a singer and a dancer and an artist, a closet artist. Draw in my closet, hide it. I understand the introvert thing, but it's my creativity that's really kept me alive, truly. You know, even being bullied in school, poetry was the way that I worked through my emotions, you know, and I called myself a dark poet, you know, and I was in that goth phase for a while where I was just, you know, sharing all the darkness that I felt, you know, and that would alarm people. But I said, oh, you should be more concerned about those who are not expressing themselves and they're not sharing these dark things because they're not transmuting it. They're not allowing it a space outside of their bodies. And that's what's most important and that's what I've learned most. And my journey has included a lot of plant medicine healing. And that was one of the things that I've learned in my journeys with ayahuasca, actually, was how to recognize these emotions in my body. Before that, I had been an energy healer, you know, for years and still couldn't move these painful traumas out of my body. I hadn't been able to do it for myself totally. And I was still feeling that it was stuck in there. And it was, you know, and I had to really look inside of myself and see what was causing it. And then I had to choose to heal it. And that's the opportunity that we all have. We can choose to hold on to it or we can let it go. And it wants to express itself in many different ways. And we have to allow that to happen. You know, we have to allow that expression to come through however it wants to. And so I love to encourage people to express themselves. You know, it's not about being the best artist or the best writer or the best singer or anything. It's about finding your authentic expression, your authentic voice, and your art.
Thank you for saying that. I really love the language that you use, especially transmutation, because I believe everything is energy. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like a lot of people don't understand that feelings are they're energy packets. You know, if you feel some sort of distress or even, you know, something positive, it's a form of energy. And the bad stuff, you don't want it to stay in you because it metastasizes, it just gets bigger and bigger. So it's
Mm-hmm.
important to transmute it, sublimate it into something positive. I actually have a theory. um, as I think about like why do we have so many you know, sex offenders, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, the sex creative urge, it's one of our most basic human instincts and urges. And it's like if you gave these people something creative to do, that they wouldn't feel the urge to actually physically, you know, harm people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
give them markers. You know, give them you know, something creative, or even, you know, there are different ways of being creative. You know, like in business, there's different creation as well. It doesn't have to be all artsy, but it's, you know,
Mm-hmm.
coming up with ideas and just seeing them through. And like you said, it's not being about perfect. You know, I color every day. I'm not doing it because I want to be, you know, nay or something like that. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
doing it for my health because it feels good. It's a way to shift gears, and we need to recreate every day. You know, we
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't just be work, work, work. Um, so I really appreciate you bringing that up. There's something else that you brought up that I'm curious to talk to you about if you're comfortable with it. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
ayahuasca,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to have pretty severe physical, you know, responses to trauma I had been through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And something that really helped me was ketamine and DMT.
Mm-hmm.
And but I got to the point, and it was only a few times, and I had friends that guided me that are in that space and educated, and some
Mm-hmm.
doctors and scientists. So, you know, I felt comfortable. But it was interesting because it got to the point where I realized I don't need this anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And like the transition from my waking state, or whatever you want to call it, this, you know, state to you know, like with DMT, like I could see the things without actually having to. And I was like, I don't need this anymore. So it was really neat. But the reason I bring this up is because Um, I found, at least today, that a lot of people are getting kind of caught up in the psychedelics,
Mm-hmm.
heal everything,
Oh
but
yeah.
they're not doing the work. Like they're not re-educating themselves. They're not building a solid foundation. So they'll go on all these trips around the world
Yes.
and have these ceremonies with shamans. And then they come back to reality and have a very difficult time adjusting. And they just want to go on the next
Yeah.
trip and on the next trip. And unfortunately, some of them never come back. They go on to the next part of life. And so I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts? Because you actually sound like you do have that foundation and you're very grounded. So I'm curious, like, what kind of work have you done to have that grounding? Because I imagine you're not going on the next ayahuasca trip, then looking for when's the next one? Like, you probably don't seek it anymore. I don't, and if I'm wrong, that's okay. You can
Well,
correct
you picked
me.
up on me having a lot of experience in this realm. Ayahuasca is what has led my life over the past 7 years or so. So, in 2015, I was looking for that healing, and I had always thought I had to go to the Amazon for ayahuasca healing, and I had known about it for years, but just slipped my mind. And then in 2015, I decided to look that up, and I found that I could do it in the States. And there's a place 6 hours away from me that I could go. And I had a private ceremony, and I brought a friend with me. And that was the night that I saw that I had a mass of cancer in my stomach. Ayahuasca showed me this big black mass in my stomach and said, this is where all that trauma is that you've been concerned about. And here it is. And you have the choice to let it go. And do you want to do that? I was like, yeah. I spent hours letting that go. But then after that, and I learned all about her sense of humor. She was talking to me, and I knew it wasn't my voice, and I knew it was her. And after the healing, where I had let go of this black mass and went through that whole thing, she said, "Your training begins now." I was like, okay. And here my friend was really struggling, and I was able to energetically see that he had this attachment, this entity attached to him. And I was able to basically exorcise this demon without having any idea what I was doing. It was the strangest experience. And then the people leading it were just kind of like, okay, she knows what she's doing. Just listen to her, they were saying to my friend. And so then basically, I led him through this healing experience. And then that night I couldn't sleep. I was having just vivid, lucid dreams, and my body was writhing like a snake. And I just kept hearing, you've been this person for thousands of years. This is why you're here. This is why you've come back. This is why I've called to you. This is why you sing. This is why you dance. This is why you are who you are. And then I had this dream, and there's the town closest to me is Berea in Kentucky, and this is where I had come actually for my healing back in 2015. This area, and so in this dream, I'm driving my car down roads in the daytime and the nighttime. The roads turn to brick and then to dirt and then to grass. And at a point I'm pushing my car, but all I kept hearing was all roads lead to Berea, all roads lead to Berea, all roads lead to Berea. And I was like, okay. And I woke up the next day and I said to my friend, I think I'm moving here. And sure enough, within a few months, I was down here and I was working with a Native American church and I was facilitating ayahuasca ceremonies. And so I was in that wave in 2015, back whenever it wasn't really happening in the US. At least it was in the underground, but it wasn't really becoming that well known. But at that time, it started to. And so I was at that place where I had been training with it myself and had done many journeys, and then I was there to facilitate group ceremonies. And so I have a lot of experience sitting with people while they're in that space and being the one that's their comfort, their energetic support, their physical body support. So that was my job for some months until it was time for me to move on from there and to leave this place. And so but in that time, I only really journeyed out by myself. I've never done it in a group setting, even though I've facilitated groups, because I always felt like I would be the one pulling all the energy out of everyone, all their pain and suffering, and I would be the one transmuting it through my body, because that's how intensely I feel people suffering. I feel people suffering. I feel animals suffering. I feel plants suffering. I feel all of the suffering of all of humanity all at once. And it's very overwhelming. And but that's been my journey, is learning how to detach enough from others' suffering to heal my own first. And that's where ayahuasca came in. And so my journey with ayahuasca is so much different than most people's, because I've done it over 25 times, but mostly all on my own with my own brew that I made. So and those have been the most powerful experiences of my life. Like, I teach people to follow their intuition, and to, when you feel the nudges of plants calling to you, it's like undeniable. Like, the medicine will come to you however it needs to, and DMT is naturally occurring in our brains. It's there mostly when we're mostly present when we're born and when we die. And so that's the closest feeling that you get to that God-like, that creation-like energy. And in that space, I found that I could learn anything that I ever wanted to know about anything, because all I had to do was ask. And that's really the truth of it, is that all we have to do is ask. We don't even necessarily need the plant medicines, but they are an amazing guide to really put you in that space where it's undeniable. Like, you can't, I could never deny that I didn't hear voices, and that she wasn't speaking to me and guiding me, because she's been guiding me ever since she was calling to me in 2015, and continues to guide me. And I take breaks. I've taken long breaks, and I haven't even done it since 2019, like spring of 2019. And that was really the most powerful experience of my life. I used a brew that I had sitting in my fridge for months. And I learned so much about myself in that journey, that I haven't felt the need to do it again. But I still feel that she speaks to me, especially here in this place, in this forest, because I'm in this ancient forest. And so I feel that you get to a point where it's not that I would never do it again. It's just more that I haven't felt that call, because I feel so connected now that I've dug deep. And I always say that it's like peeling off layers of an onion, our healing, and it's in layers. And you can't expect to just drink ayahuasca once and then be healed. You have to reintegrate. And I had a very tough time reintegrating after my first few experiences. And that's why it's so close to me to help coach people. I've actually coached people through this, the reintegration process, just informally, because people know that I have a lot of experience, and they'll call me and be like, I'm experiencing this weird thing, and my life is the same, but it's not the same. And it can be very confusing, and you can easily forget once you get back to this realm, and you get back to your 3D reality and your life as you were going, it's very easy to just get back into how you were living before. And that's why it's, you have to keep following those nudges. People usually don't go once and then they're done. Some people do, but if you keep peeling off those layers, then you're willing to go deep, as deep as you have to go, until you feel like you can move forward, and that you can. I just totally lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No, I really appreciate what you shared about your story, and especially reintegration, because that's so important. And it's shocking a lot of times for people when they have this experience and see the world and themselves differently, especially if it's like their first time. And then they come back, and it's like we live in this world of illusions, and it's recognizing like what's real and what's not real. And also one of my teachers, she says, don't be so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good, right? And that's part of the reintegration. It's like you have to be in the world but not of the world. And I think that's not always easy, because it's like the people I work with, I always tell them to be patient, because they're working on themselves, and they're starting to evolve in consciousness, yet the people they're around aren't working on themselves as much. So there's a bigger and bigger gap. And so a lot of times they get frustrated or they get sad. And it's like, hold on, everybody's on the same journey. And there's different ways to get there. Um, and everyone's going at their own pace. So part of the person that has had a higher consciousness experience, I think part of their responsibility is to be more patient and understanding with others. We're all spiritual children, and to recognize like nobody's perfect. Even the person that's highly evolved in consciousness is still working on themselves. There's always more, to go. Cosmic consciousness is, supposed to be, the peak of it. Like the avatars, like Moses,
Mm-hmm.
Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus. All these people, they attain cosmic consciousness. There's other people too that aren't necessarily as famous. There's a book by Walt Whitman about, I think, yeah, a cosmic consciousness that writes about a lot, but there's so many others that nobody will know about, and it's a matter of self-discipline and self-awareness when you get to that level and you're reintegrating, because it's like, yeah, we all want to live in that world where everybody is fulfilled and thriving and we're living harmoniously and balanced lives. But it doesn't happen overnight. It's like it's a teaser of what's possible. And so it's just important to stay grounded. But like what you're doing is huge because you've changed your environment. You've changed the vibrations around you, and so it makes it easier for you to live the way you want versus people that live in like urban, areas like San Francisco, like me. We're constantly bombarded with this illusion. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's even more important to have daily practices versus when you're out in nature, you're connected with life. And spirit is everywhere communicating through everything. And it's just making the space to hear and receive. Like you said, you just have to ask, but not everybody is making the space, or when they do hear the answer, they don't want to accept it because of their conditioning, their environment. And that's yet another reason, like even if you are in an urban area, to spend time alone, to
Absolutely.
yeah, to figure it out. I mean, I recently had a health scare, and I was in a lot of pain, and I went to the emergency room, and they couldn't figure out what was going on with me. $18,000 later, a CAT scan and a bunch of ultrasounds and exams late and blood work. Like, you're fine. And so I just went home and I thanked the pain and I started talking to it. And I figured out what was going on with me. I was pushing myself too hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was trying too hard. I'm like, okay, slow down. And that's part of the reason I also mentioned pace and just, we're all human, even those of us that are perhaps perceived as being like higher evolved in consciousness. We still make mistakes. We still have to go back sometimes to basics. At least that's been the journey for me. And that was it. And like when that happened, I'm like, okay, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to clear my
Yeah.
schedule. I'm going to focus on my body first. It's so that my vehicle, is in a good enough shape for spirit to express through me without interference. And so that's a really big part of my practice. And it sounds like it's similar for you in some ways as well.
Oh, yeah. I lived in Chicago for 8 years. That was part of my moving around. And every part of me did not like living there, but I was just there, until I couldn't be there anymore. And I was depleted on all levels, like really, really ill, like on, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. I just was really ill, and I had to leave. And that's a big part of it, is paying attention to where we physically need to be, because sometimes it's not where we want to be. It's just where our energy is needed at the time and where we need to go to heal. And I've fought to get to this place of nature, because I felt that calling in my heart for so long, like my whole life. I grew up in Pittsburgh, PA. So I grew up in a city, and then just moved to bigger cities until the earth was like, stop covering me up with concrete, and like, you can't learn anything more here, kind of was what I felt. Was like, I have to go be with Mother Earth, as close as possible. Um, and that's been my grounding. I wasn't able to find that in cities, even when I was looking for it, even when I was surrounded by lots of people, or I would go to a park or something. I didn't feel it as much as I do now that I'm in this forest of ancient mountains and water. It's just amazing how different I feel. Um, but I've had to learn what I even needed, because for so many years I didn't even understand that like I required it in order to be my full self, and it takes so many years of understanding and learning and peeling off those layers. And I'm in my 40s now, and I'm just now really starting to understand myself, so we have to be patient with ourselves, because like the gift is in the unfolding. I'm learning so much about myself, and it's because I stop and I'll pay attention to like this tree or this rock or this animal or whatever, and I'll try to learn something from it and understand it better. And that's more just what we're meant to do, is understand each other, ourselves, the earth more, because we are all connected. And I just find it's even noisy for me when it's quiet. So I have to have ultimate quiet. And then especially in more populated places where everybody has all these ideas and opinions and beliefs, and it's all about, separation. And that was just too much for me, because I always, like you, focus on love and finding that point of mutual understanding, because we all have that, because we are all more alike than we are different. And so that's always what I try to find. And you can find that spark really in any person, once you get them talking about what they really enjoy. I don't ever like that question, what do you do? I don't ever ask anyone that question ever. I'll say, what makes your heart happy? What have you done interesting? What interesting thing have you done recently that you loved? I want to know the answers to those questions. I like seeing the people light up and get excited, because like, how often are we even asking each other real questions? And that's why I like that you're doing this, because this is an opportunity to ask real questions and get real answers. Hope that
Thank
answered
you.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate everything that you're saying, and I'm trying to just pull out as much as I can. There's a lot of overlap between us. Um, One of the things that you brought up that I keep thinking about that is important, I think, to share is, I'm a lot like you, where I'm very sensitive to energy. I pick up other people's energy, and I've had to learn to basically kind of put myself in a bubble and
Yeah.
recognize, like, that's not me, what I'm feeling right now. That's somebody else. That, I need to stay true to who I am. Um, and also, like, I've learned to not always share what I'm picking up with others, because some people that aren't necessarily knowledgeable yet or haven't remembered yet, depending on what perspective you take, that we all
Mm-hmm.
are energy, feel very violated if you share with them what you're picking up, or they could misinterpret it. I could say something very neutral, but they know what's really going on, and it's not always neutral and it's not always positive. And so I share that because it's important, like, to respect people's boundaries. Like, that's actually my word for next year, is boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
was surprised. I was like, I thought it was going to be love, but no, it's boundaries. But that is an aspect of love.
Definitely.
There's Yeah, and also, like, there was something I was thinking about you and your journey so far, about moving so much. And one of, like, I moved a couple years ago intentionally to a different area, and still in the Bay Area, but just a little more greener, a little quieter. And I did that to challenge myself, because, when you force yourself to change environments, it requires you to adapt. And when we adapt well to new environments, it helps us build confidence in ourselves. So I share that because, like, a lot of us want to stay in the same place and we don't want to explore. You don't have to move, but, like, I love to travel. I spent a few years just traveling around the world. That was my way to kind of restore faith in humanity, and but being able to make connections with people in new places, and, like I said, finding, like, and paraphrasing, common ground what we
Mm-hmm.
have in common, like is the reason I've been able to connect with people from all over the world, from all walks of life. I've been to the Middle East, I've been to Southeast Asia, French Polynesia, like all these different places with people that aren't really Western.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I guess I don't know, Middle East is a unique place, but I've been to a lot of islands and stuff like that where they're less developed, and I just love connecting with local people. But I can
Mm-hmm.
do it in cities as well. But it's being more conscious again, like of energy, because I feel that people in more urban areas vibrate at a different frequency than people in
Mm-hmm.
more natural areas, like where you are. And it's great to have that change and balance in our lives. Like for me, I've kind of spent over a decade now kind of in hiding because I was
Mm-hmm.
healing as well and working on myself, and now I'm realizing like I've been putting myself out there more and more for the past couple of years because I had a vision too. And my vision came it was an auditory vision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I heard things, I felt things, and I tried to resist it, and my life kept taking me in that direction. And the more I resisted, the more pain I experienced. So I
Mm-hmm.
finally surrendered. That's the second time I'm using that word, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think that's important. Is like a lot of times we think we know what we want and we go after it and we end up paying for it. Like you kind of mentioned, you don't ask people what they do. I'm the same way because it doesn't really matter. But
Yeah.
ultimately, like in the ideal world, I believe that we're doing what we love, and it doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like something we dread. I could never do that. I could never have a job that didn't fulfill me inside, and that's part of the reason I've just been doing my own thing for so long now. Because
Mm-hmm.
I realized like I want to originate, ideas for myself and new chains of causation. I don't want to answer to other people. I don't want to deal with people that lack integrity. But I know that's not the path for everybody. Right? We're
Mm-hmm.
not all like there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. There's a lot of risk that comes for that. We need all types of people, but I'm sharing that for people that might be more inclined to do things on their own, but also even people that prefer to work for others. I believe that it's possible to do something that they really love. But
Yeah.
it's reprioritizing our values. Like, what do we really want in life? Like, I mentor people, and sometimes people come to me like, I want more money. Like, but money is great. It's a great tool. But what do you really want that money for? It's a feeling that they're after. It's a sense of security. It's the ability to do certain things. And a lot of times I can help people recognize, well, like what you're trying to do is actually not going to help you get there to that feeling that you want. So it's
Mm-hmm.
important to take a look at that. Like for me, I had to realize all I need is food, shelter, and love. I'm pretty simple.
Yeah.
All other things, but I think we all need. That's all we really need. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. I think you resonate because you're also very doing your own thing as well.
Yeah, for the last I was working in office jobs for many years because I thought like, oh, I'm good at this, I'm a great executive assistant or administrative whatever. I guess this is life. For many years of my adult life, I thought that I had to be corporate or I had to have an office job and I had to fit that mold, but I never really did. I would only work for small companies that I felt at least had some integrity or they were doing something that I was interested in, at least enough. But then I got laid off from a job I'd had at the beginning of 2011. And it was like the best day ever because I went outside downtown Chicago in January. And I just remember like looking up at the sky and putting my arms up and being like, I'm free. Like I can go on unemployment right now because I just got laid off. And now I can think about maybe using these skills and doing something else. And I just kind of right away already had an offer to be a virtual assistant for a woman who teaches people to communicate with their spirit guides. And so she became like my first client and was my main client for over 7 years. I helped her with the back end of her online business, but it kept me engaged and I was able to take all those skills and then do something that was more fulfilling, something that I liked more and something that paid more. And I was able to stay home. And so that started my entrepreneurial journey. And then from there, I just kept trying new things. My path is all about like trying things and, seeing if it works or not. And a lot of the time it doesn't. But then I learn a whole bunch about myself like, oh, I need certain things in order to thrive, and we all do. We just have to learn what those are, and I thought, oh, if I just work for myself and I'm at home, everything will be great. Meanwhile, even though I'm an introvert, I still need more interaction, so I would feel really isolated, like not having anybody to like talk to, just being inside for a week at a time, so you have to learn different ways of being with yourself, to learn how you want to be in the world. And so it's just been an evolution of learning things about myself and then kind of sharing them. When I left Chicago in 2013, I was really broken feeling, and I discovered Reiki for the first time, and had a session with a woman on the other side of the world who never even spoke to me. And in 15 minutes, I felt totally better. And I was like, how does this work? I need to know how this works. And so I asked around and found a teacher. And within a few weeks, I was Reiki level 1. And then from the moment I was attuned to that energy, and I would work on someone, their bodies would give me messages. And I would, as I'm working on their chakras, I'm hearing different things and feeling things and seeing things, and all about them and their bodies, and their, sometimes past loved ones would come through with a message, or sometimes the body would say, oh, you shouldn't be eating this thing because it's causing this in your body, and we don't want that. And I would never know what was going to come up. And at first, I was getting all these messages, and I asked my teacher about it, and she said, oh, that's just your intuition, but you don't need to share that with people. You just keep it to yourself, she said. And I sat with that, and I'm like, why would I keep all this information to myself? Because I don't need it. Once I'm out of that session, I'm working with someone else's energy. And so I feel that maybe I should start sharing. So then I just changed up my whole practice. And after I would do a session, I would go through everything that I found, and I would tell them everything that was happening, that I heard, that I saw, that I felt. And then it would be this beautiful heart-opening conversation where they would finally say, oh, wow, like, yes, that's exactly what was happening. And they would tell me what was happening for them. And a lot of the times we would hug or we would cry, and it would be this amazing, beautiful experience that if I hadn't shared that, none of that would have happened. It would just have been all unspoken, and yes, we are able to communicate telepathically, not speaking, but there's also something so beautiful when we're able to share that energy and then speak about it. So I did hundreds of sessions like that were just really amazing. And I can't imagine if I had never shared, because it opened up a whole new world for me.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I was curious about your Reiki history. It's really great that you trusted yourself and you opened up. Like, actually, I emailed one of my clients yesterday because I had a dream about her the night before. She's going through some big decision-making processes right now. And all these questions came to me in the middle of the night. And I wrote them down, and I texted her in the morning. I'm like, what's the best email to send this to you? Because this is for you. I know this is for you, and I have to give it to you because it's like, yeah, I could communicate it to her telepathically, but I wanted her to have it right in front of her clear because, again, not everyone is tuned in yet. And so it's important to help people out, especially people that we're supporting. And the people I work with, I think they're kind of used to me. I'm very non-traditional. Like, if something comes to me about them, I want to give it to them right away.
Yes.
Because I don't want to hold on to it. It's not for me. I'm just a channel for that expression
Mm-hmm.
You've kind of alluded to this a few times, and I like to use the word consciousness. Like, there's a universal consciousness in everything, in every single electron, and electrons are all there is. And so that everything has consciousness. That's why you can feel the plants, you can feel all life forms, even minerals, the consciousness within them is what organizes the electrons together correctly. So I want to bring in that because it's like, well, there's a scientific, perspective to what we're talking about. Because I think some people that might be new to this kind of, listening into this kind of conversation might be a little confused. It's like, well, it's just consciousness. Science says there's just one thing, energy. Consciousness is an aspect of energy, or, from a theological perspective, it's an aspect of God, or, you can call it spirit. It's the same thing in everything that's here. So I really just appreciate your journey and how you have trusted yourself. And like, it's really inspiring how you just keep going further and further with trusting your intuition, trusting your visions. And it seems like you do it gently and gracefully. You know, you're not like bulldozing your way in. It seems like you're leaving room to adapt as well as you're going through this, which is really important because a lot of us, or I don't know, a lot of people I've noticed in general seem to be in a hurry.
Mm.
And it's like, what's the rush? Like, where are you going? You know, like I'd rather take my time and do things in a way that feels right to me than to feel rushed. I
Mm-hmm.
used to be the opposite. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like, no, like, I have a book that's finished, just needs to be edited. I'm not ready. Like, it's okay. Like, because this isn't, I feel like I'm going to bring up the word pride. I feel like it helps to not have pride, right? Because it's ego. And it leads us to making not the best decisions, when we're doing things out of, for pride or ego reasons. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about my own journey a little bit as you were speaking, and how, when I stopped working for other people, I didn't have pride. I didn't have my ego drive me. I adapted, like, just to survive. I realized, like, I don't need, like I said, I didn't need a lot to survive or thrive. And so I opened up my home. I let people stay in my living room. Like, this was back in, 2012, Airbnb was just getting started. I met
Mm-hmm.
so many interesting people, had so many connections. So I was getting my social needs met, but it was like one-on-one experiences. So they were deep. And then I drove for like Uber, Lyft, sidecar. And it was nice because it was like I got to take care of people and meet
Mm-hmm.
people and do it on my terms. And I share that because, like, I know there are a lot of people out there that are letting pride get in the way of them actually living a fulfilling life. Right? It's like, what's driving them? That's actually one of my favorite questions to ask people, is like when I'm meeting them, is actually like, what drives you? So actually, yeah, I think I know what drives you, but what drives you, Diana?
My connection to Gaia, my connection to Mother Earth drives me every day because I'm learning from her every day, especially being in this place. And I'm now caretaking a 40-acre property that I had seen in my dreams. And I'm working on the cabin there to be able to move into it. And I noticed that, like, this is the place that feels like home. And when I'm there, um, I'm so connected to everything that nothing else exists. And in all of my journeys throughout my life, um, plant medicine journeys and other journeys and meditation, that's really always the feeling that you come back to, is where you're just one with yourself. You're one with all things. You're not lacking anything. You're not asking for anything. That you're just are. And I think that's the biggest gift that we can give ourselves, is to learn what it feels like in our bodies to just be, because we're constantly in that do, go, 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 and that's not really how we truly create things of magnitude. It's in that rest phase, it's in that cocooning, it's in that deep space of being, that we actually are able to come forth and create. And so I've had to learn that being busy doesn't mean that I'm being productive. It doesn't mean that I'm actually even helping myself or others just by being busy. If I'm not in that right state. So I've had to learn to just stop, take breaks, nurture myself, um, you know, be my own best friend is really what it is, because I wouldn't tell any of my friends, like, push yourself so hard that you drop and, don't rest because you've not reached that success yet, or whatever it is. I would never tell anyone to do that. And especially a child, I try to think of myself as a child a lot of the time, because that's really what we all are inside. We're still a child. And so I just kind of ask, what that part of me needs, because I need to tend to that um, most. But and the earth leads you back to that childlike energy also. It's very it's not so serious. It's playful. Things happen in nature and then everything moves on. It's we don't stay. If you observe any sort of animal, they're not stuck in the past or worried about the future. They're just in the present, all the time, just like a child. They're in the present all the time. And so that's our biggest struggle, I think, as adults, is staying present, because we have all of these external responsibilities and things that we're supposed to pay attention to, and look at this, look at this, look at that, distractions everywhere. But it's really in nature that I find myself I back again in that connected place. And so that's what drives me, is because ultimately I just want to feel peace in my heart and in my surroundings. And I want that for everyone else. I want everyone to feel a sense of peace and love and fulfillment, because that's what we are here for, and to recognize our gifts and share them, because I think that's also, and even in having this interview and sharing things about my journey, I'm very private usually. I don't talk a lot about the things that I do and that I've been through. And I don't usually talk about my visions or psychic abilities or connection to things, but it's important because, like you were saying, like, we are conduits. And so if we are feeling these things, if we're hearing these things, if we know these things are true, then it's really up to us to share those truths and share that beauty that's within us. Otherwise, no one even knows that it exists. And so that's been my biggest thing this year, is trying to heal myself enough within to feel that I could present myself and my gifts. And that's ultimately what I write about. It's what I, share with people all the time. It's just my own journey, because I'm on it. Like, we're on it together. We're doing this together. Just even having this conversation, like, we're opening up, pathways for new consciousness and for beautiful things to appear just by speaking into this space. And that, I think, is just what's most important, is finding the connection to ourselves, the connection to earth, and connection to each other.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful what you shared about what drives you and what's going on and why you're here. And I'm just honored that you felt comfortable to share with me today. And it is important. I don't mean any disrespect, but I think about, Buddhists and how, typically they go away and isolate themselves. It's like, but we need that. We need them integrating and influencing us closer. It's important to learn how to meditate and learn certain principles about life, but it's also important to inspire others to be open, to show people, like, this is the way to peace, this is the way to fulfillment, this is the way to joy and health, and you can do it in a sustainable way, in a way where everybody benefits. I've always been about creating win-win situations. I don't like the models where people profit at the expense of someone else. That just doesn't resonate, and that's not sustainable. And that's part of the illusion. And, I think that's part of the reason I felt like, okay, it's time to finally do a podcast, because this is something I didn't really want to do. Because I am also a very private person, but I realized it doesn't serve anybody to be private, even myself, because I've got this energy inside and it wants to be expressed. And so I had to find an intelligent way to express it. And, like, okay, this isn't about me. This is about helping others. And yeah, I know in the process, I'm also going to evolve more fulfillment, because this is part of what I've been called to. And this whole presence thing is really, really important that you mentioned, because we aren't present most of the time, and it's affecting our quality of life, our perception of life, our experiences. We're always thinking, we're projecting, we're not seeing things the way that they really are. And that's something I've been working a lot on this year, is to be able to separate my observations from my perceptions, judgments, and so forth. Like, what am I really seeing? Because we have the ability to color things with our perception incorrectly, both good and bad. I used to label certain behaviors as loving. It's just an action. I don't really know if it's loving or not, because I had a history of trauma, and so I realized I had to stop making that connection and just identify, like, this is what's really happening. It's not love. I don't know that it's love. It's just, this is what's happening. And I share that because it's a great tool, because a lot of times we do label certain behavior as loving. It's it's really not, and we get in trouble as individuals, as society. And so it's important to discern, what's really happening. Although I do my best to look for the good in everything. Again, it's back to that balance of, being in the world, of the world. It's like you don't, we are human for a reason. We're here in these bodies for a reason.
Mm.
And so I do think there's a huge responsibility that comes with that. And part of it is learning to just distinguish like what's really happening and what's not, and being honest to ourselves. And I just really appreciate your courage that you've been honest with yourself and you've been candid with others about who you are in your journey, because that's what inspires others. Having
Mm.
courage is something that like I don't like to talk too much about my political aspirations, but when I ran for office in 2020, one of the things I realized, um, just based on the way people voted, was that most people, my perception was that most people lack faith in themselves, and they lack and faith in each other, and they lack courage. But those can be developed. And I felt like part of my responsibility is to help people have faith in each other, have faith in themselves, and to have courage to choose what they believe is actually right versus settling for the lesser evil. Or
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, because I really believe in, and I hope this isn't offending you or anybody, like I believe that as voluntary communities, that we can basically figure out a way to solve any of our problems. Like we don't need to delegate to somebody to control us, to tell us what to do. We can figure it
Absolutely
out for
agree.
ourselves. Yeah, but we need to talk to each other. We need to come together. We need to learn from each other, and to respect each other's experiences and wisdom, and recognize, nobody has all the answers. And that's why it's so important to engage with each other and be open-minded. And yeah, so I'm really just honored that we are able to connect today. I'm curious if there's anything else that's on your heart or mind that you'd like to share before we wrap up today.
I just keep hearing healing and evolution are messy, and we have to be okay with that, because we're not perfect, we're nothing near it, but like you were just saying, together we can do anything. And it really is that goes back to intention. And that's another reason why I'm in this place where I am, because the people here have that mentality where we are a community. Even though we span hundreds of acres, we are a community, and we care for each other, and we take care of each other, and we help each other, and we don't have any interference, in this area. And that's another reason why I'm here. It's like, it's that freedom that was calling me. It's the sovereignty that I was longing for. Even living in a suburb, I wasn't getting that sense. I had to go somewhere where you're so far out there that no one's going to bother you, and the only people you have are your neighbors. Like, it happens all the time. A tree just falls in the middle of the road, and guess what? You have to have a chainsaw in your truck, otherwise you're not going to get by. Or you have, the neighbors just come out and help each other. And that's just a physical 3D example of what I see happening now, is because, these connections that we're able to make virtually are changing everything, because we are able to share this message far and wide. And so I think I don't want people to fear the messiness, is really all it is, because my journey has been incredibly messy, and painful and full of struggle. And but that's how we get to the triumph, and it's so much sweeter, now, having gone through everything I've gone through, and now seeing that it all had a purpose, so like the messiness is just kind of a sign that you're getting in there, and you're on your way. And I would like to encourage people to choose for themselves. Like you were saying, we're highly influenced or not wanting to take responsibility, and I feel like full self-responsibility is where it's at. And we can still be in full self-responsibility and respect each other and listen to each other and grow and learn and evolve, rather than that constant need to judge people for where they are. And that's just embracing the messiness. So I think that is what I will leave everyone with.
Thank you. That was so on point and something I completely resonate and agree with. And I want to add more, but I won't because I know we keep on going and going.
Next time.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna wrap us up with a closing concept, set us all off on a like extra positive note. I am the place where life shines through, for life and I are one, not two. Life wants me where and as I am. I need not fret, nor fear, nor plan. If I will be relaxed and free, life will carry out its work through me.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
beautiful.